Hey everybody, this is Strategywizard again, and today I'm going to be doing another one of my videos where I basically go against the critics on Board Game Geek of a game I really like. In this case, it's going to be Dice Masters. It doesn't matter if it's Marvel or whatever it is. In this particular case, though, because it has the most ratings, I'm going to be doing Marvel Dice Masters Avengers versus X-Men. So let's go ahead and jump right down to the ones. I'm going to go for the people who hate it the most, see what they say. Maybe you'll find it funny. I'll probably find it funny. I'll probably get a little upset here and there, but maybe it'll be educational for you to see why people don't like it and see maybe why you wouldn't like it also, and maybe I'll be able to counter those points and you'll see why it's still awesome. So let's go ahead and get started here. I will say this. The vast majority of people like it. It has a 7.2 average on Board Game Geek, so that's a good sign that it's pretty popular, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's for you. So let's go ahead and jump on in here and see what some people say. This guy, remember we're at the ones. This guy says, completely random game. It's like a deck builder, but with cards that give random effect. Roll many energy and you will buy many dice until there's nothing to buy, so you do nothing. Roll many units and you will do nothing with them until you roll some energy. Now, that's true. I mean, you could get unlucky, and if you have a bunch of character dice, you roll those character dice, and if they all roll up as characters, you don't have the energy to put them up. But here's the thing. And you could roll just energy, which means you have no characters to put up to protect yourself or attack with. But here's the thing. First of all, that would be very unlucky because you get one reroll. Chances are you're going to get something useful. Here's the other thing. How you build your team matters. And you can build people who cost a lot. You can even get people, actual characters that cost nothing to put up. Now, they're not as powerful, but the point is, if you get an interesting balance of characters where you have some that cost a lot and are really powerful, or you get a bunch of get several that are cheap and get a mix and some in the middle. If you get a nice range, you can end up doing some really powerful things because you could roll. I've had cases where I'll roll a bunch of dice. I'll have a character that's for free to put up. I put them up like the shield agent is a good example, and I might have Odin who costs 3. I might have rolled 3 energy and I put Odin up and I get this other guy for free. Other times you might get unlucky and maybe you'll roll a Loki and a Thor and they cost a lot and maybe you only have enough energy to put up one of them. But the thing is that theoretically you try to have a team that balances your energy costs so that you don't ever have a point where there's just so much stuff that you just can't buy it. I mean, it could happen. It will happen sometimes, but if you control your team better and buy a nice, assortment of dice. I mean, having a team is one thing, but if you just buy, Odin over and over again, which it'd take a while to buy him because he's expensive. But the point is, if you buy the more expensive ones that take a lot of energy to field, yes, you could have problems, but that's why you should buy some of the cheaper ones first that don't have such a high energy cost and go for the other ones later and build your team so you have action dice that can make it to where you get more dice into your prep area to roll more, or ways to make things cheaper or other things. There's a lot of different things you can do that mitigate what this guy's talking about, so I don't think that's such a big deal. I understand that it can happen, but if you make a good team, the odds of it happening are very small. This guy says, collectible MTG style BS. Money sink. Whiz kids. Okay, this guy is very vulgar. I'm not going to say everything that he's saying, but basically he just thinks that it's horrible because it's a money pit. Okay, well, I'll just say this. If you bought, it is expensive if you really want to get a lot. I won't deny that. I bought 2 gravity feeds. Gravity feeds aren't cheap, but now that I have 2 gravity feeds and 3 starter sets, which one of them I just got because it was really cheap, I don't feel like I need anything else. I'm very happy with what I have. I mean, I might buy more just because I really like it, but I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything. I've got so many cool things, and I can make a wide variety of teams. If you didn't buy a gravity feed and just bought a bunch of boosters, maybe eventually you would get frustrated because maybe you'd get a bunch of things you don't need. I don't know, but it's a game that you know that coming into it. If you want to get a really good team with a lot of options, you're going to have to spend some money. That's just the way it is. But that doesn't mean the game is bad, so I don't think that's fair. This guy says, I've always wondered what a deck-building version of Magic would look like, but this game takes one of the worst aspects of Magic, artificial scarcity to drive up the price, and waves it in your face unashamedly. Same type of thing. I don't think that's a reason to give it a 1. It is collectible. So the 1. Game is actually pretty fun to play, especially if you like to roll lots of dice. Why did you give it a 1 just because it's collectible? That's not reasonable. This game is not substantially different than Warriors. On top of that, the theme is literally pasted on. I find no reason to like this game. I've never played Warriors, so I can't really attest to that. But and the theme, is it pasted on? Essentially, I mean, you're rolling dice and attacking. It could be anything else. So that's why they have Warhammer Dice Masters, and they've got Yu-Gi-Oh! Dice Masters, and D&D. Yeah, I mean, the theme isn't tied to the mechanics, but the theme does add something to the gameplay. If you like Avengers versus Yu-Gi-Oh, I can tell you like this: I'd rather have Avengers and DC than Yu-Gi-Oh any day of the week, because I don't know anything about Yu-Gi-Oh, so it doesn't. I'm not interested. So the theme helps it be more interesting, seeing the cool characters that you like, if that's what you're into. Combine an overrated dice game, which is Warriors, with an overrated card game that is nothing but a glorified money sink and based on a popular theme, and you get this steaming pile of garbage. Happy to have played and not purchased. So he kind of wraps up some of the other ideas that other people have. You have to spend a lot of money to get a lot of good stuff, and it's just a pace-it-on theme, etc. Okay, those aren't reasons to give it a 1 in my opinion, except for, he does say overrated dice game, Warriors. I don't have an opinion on that. I don't know how Warriors is. And yeah, if you don't like rolling dice and dice building or bag building to see what you end up getting, then sure, definitely not your kind of game. I can't deny that. Okay, let's see what's next. We have, oh, wait, we're in the 2s. Pants. I don't understand that. Imagine playing Magic the Gathering with only a small handful of cards, and you have to roll dice which randomly allow you to use your cards. Sound fun? In this case, I would say it does. You don't really tell me why it's not, but obviously just because that mechanic doesn't do much for you, I suppose. This was a huge disappointment to me. I love Warriors, and I collected comics for decades. I also love dice in general, but not in a creepy way, mind you. It's the collectible part that broke it for me. I would rather pay $100, I don't really want to pay that much, mind you, to have the game rather than to spend $100 to maybe have the game. Okay, first of all, hey, that's the first point. I disagree. To me, if you spend $100, that is essentially, if you do base price, that's essentially something like a starter set and a gravity feed. To me, if you've done that, you've got the game. You don't need to buy more. That is a nice setup, in my opinion. Whenever originally I got the Spider-Man starter set, and the gravity feed didn't even exist from what I could tell. I couldn't find it. So put that aside. Then I bought Age of Ultron starter set, and I bought the Age of Ultron gravity feed to go with it. Once I had that, I was like, wow, there's a lot of game here. There's so much. I bought the DC because I liked it so much that I was thinking, well, I would be happy to just add a whole other group of things into this game. But to me, one gravity feed and one starter set, you're good. That gives you an awesome array of choices. Okay, this is his second point. I would also prefer a game that was self-contained and did not require that someone else own the game as well. Okay, well, that's not the case. I have my stuff. I don't need, my cousin Jared. He came over and we played. He didn't have to have anything. I had enough. You buy a gravity feed and a starter set, bam, you're ready to go. So I disagree with him there. I left the CCG world behind me when I entered board games. I loved that I could just bring a game and anyone could play it. In my opinion, that's what this is. It's expensive. I mean, it is, but that's just the name of the game. Third and last point. He says, I think it's the last point. It says more here. Oh, okay, I will read that in a second. I don't like the possibility that Wolverine can fight Wolverine, etc. Hero fighting hero is just another day in comic book land, but it takes a special break for a hero to fight themselves. I mean, remember Strife and Cable? Yeesh, what a headache. I don't know anything about that. Perhaps the 2 is overly harsh. Could have been the paper dice bags pushed me over the edge. The bottom line is that it's a CCG, while Warriors is a drafting game. I prefer the drafting. Again, don't know anything about Warriors, but see, here's the thing. He says the possibility of Wolverine fighting Wolverine. Again, if you just buy the set, like I do, you buy a starter set, you get a gravity feed, you bring that, you have a lot of options, and you just make a rule. You can't pick Wolverine if I pick Wolverine. I don't understand how that's hard. I don't know. I know that some people play it where you have your own stuff, and you make your team, then you put them together. Yes, then you could be fighting the same person. In my opinion, the way I play it, I've got all this stuff. I say, hey, here's what we're choosing. Whatever you choose, I won't choose. Whatever I choose, you don't choose. Everyone wins. Piece of cake. Okay, this guy says the most random game ever. Random booster pack purchases plus random die draw plus random die roll equals absolutely no control. Now that's not true, but I'll get to that in a second. The die quality is disappointing. The theme is absolutely not present. Both players can have the same characters. Global effects on character cards can be used by both players. Rules, and I don't see why that's Okay, not non-thematic, but rules and game design seem unfinished. The dice bags are a bad joke. The hype around this game makes no sense to me at all and solely relies on blind fanboy passion. The only good thing about this game is the low price for booster packs, which then again kind of gives me the impression that this game's main targeted audience are younger players. Don't get me wrong, I would really love to like this game as I like dice deck building and superheroes, but the parts of this ambitious mix just don't connect and work with each other. Playing this game does not evoke any superhero atmosphere at all, but rather feels like I already lost against some supervillain and he or she is torturing me. Well, okay, what he said, the most random game ever, blah, 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 means you have absolutely no control. I disagree with that, and the reason is you actually have a good bit of control in two ways. One, the team that you put together makes a huge difference. A few things you have to keep in mind. If you have playing a full game, you have 8 characters. You would like to have a balance of energy types because you have to use a specific type of energy to buy a die. So you want to have a few of the fist energy, a few of the mask energy, a few of the lightning bolt energy, etc. You don't want to have it all lopsided one way. So that's one thing that's important if you want to make it to where you can almost always buy something. You also want to have a range of cost. Some really cheap cards, and that includes the basic action cards that you can have, and some really expensive ones. That way you can get some stuff cheap and then end up getting some really good stuff if you ever get the chance. And not only that, but whenever you actually do even further than that is paying attention to what the abilities do. Some abilities work well together. Some types of cards are very strong together. So you want to have a team that has some synergy. So that's another thing where you have control. As far as the actual gameplay goes, because all that's set up, as far as the actual gameplay goes, there are still other things that you have to think about. Because whenever you roll, first of all, you get a reroll. So you have to decide what's worth re-rolling. Do you want to, if you rolled an awesome character, 2 good characters, and you don't have quite enough energy for both, do you re-roll? Do you keep one character, re-roll the other one, and hope it becomes energy maybe, or a cheaper version of that character, so maybe you could field them both? You have to think about those kind of things, and you have choices in what risk you want to take, but also sometimes the abilities that you have will let you do specific things. Like Loki lets you re-roll one of your opponent's dice. Which one do you re-roll? It may not be so obvious all the time, and you have to, and paying attention to global abilities and how you can use those to your advantage. That makes a big difference, because sometimes you have to expend some energy or save energy for later, hoping that you get to use it to your advantage. There's a lot of things you have to do, so I think it's unfair to say there's no control. That being said, the dice bags are not that great quality. I'm not going to deny that. But they're not just horrendously bad. I mean, I use them, but it's not the end of the world. But the gameplay is more to it than I think he gives it credit for. This guy says, terribly random. The intro game was bad enough that we put the game away and sold it. I hear it gets better with more cards and dice, but I'm not sinking money into something I didn't like. You don't tell me why, other than you say terribly random. To me, this game, it's not as random as people are saying, in my opinion. That's because you get a reroll and you have so much control in your setup of what you're trying to get, and even what you buy makes a difference. Do you buy action dice, cheap characters, powerful characters, a combination of both? All those things to me make a big difference. This guy says they took warriors and made even more unbalanced and made it even more unbalanced and luck-based. It takes a special accomplishment to change a bad game and make it even worse. Sorry you feel that way. I was really looking forward to getting a copy of this and playing it based on the hype. Played exactly once, never again. Mechanics are confusing and anti-thematic. Dumb. I don't know why he thinks the mechanics are confusing and anti-thematic, and I don't think it's like that. But okay, let's just see a few threes, and then we will wrap this puppy up. Hopefully somebody says something crazy here. This guy says, would rate higher if it was balanced. Don't recommend anything using the CCG format. Was fun playing it, but I much prefer balanced games. In my opinion, it is balanced. I don't know what he means. This guy says, played it once, got confusing and never played it again, and the dice are weird. Okay, I want to go ahead and say this. Someone earlier had said that the dice are low quality. I will say this. There are some bad paint jobs on some of the dice, but most of them look really good in my opinion. They're not that bad. But this guy says it got confusing. I don't think it's that confusing. Every now and then I had to go back and reread some of the rules or what some of the effects were, but for the most part it's pretty straightforward in my opinion. Very simple, really. It's actually a very simple game. I don't know if you think this is confusing. I can't imagine if you played something that actually has like a variety of different things that interact with each other. Here, you have your characters, you buy them, you use their abilities. I mean, unless you think the abilities are confusing, and some of them are a little confusing. I will admit that, but for the most part, most of them are simple. And if you get a good set of cards, a variety, then normally there's plenty of cards to choose from that you know what they do. Therefore, don't buy one that confuses you, or look it up online if you're not totally sure what something does. I'm truly baffled at why people enjoy this game so much. I must be missing something. It felt so unsatisfying to have dice attacking other dice instead of characters doing it. This is coming from a person who loves superhero themes and deck building mechanics. That surprises me. I don't know why you wouldn't like it. I mean, the dice represents the character. Maybe he doesn't have enough imagination. Maybe he wants to see the artwork up there in its face. But I mean, to me, it works. This guy says, this is the last one I'm going to do. I'm not going to go any further. This is my last one. I could never handle the mechanics of this game that favor passive and defensive strategies. Your hard-earned, high-cost characters could be stopped by a single sidekick, thus making combat in a superhero world irrelevant. Oh, and the collectible aspect of the game trashes the balance even in casual games. You just can't use any character in your team because there are versions deliberately worse than others. A good thing is that you only need one card, as you can use any dice of any version of the same character, but this doesn't make a better game, it just saves you some money that shouldn't be spent in this to begin with. Okay, let me address each of his points. He said, I could never handle the mechanics of this game because it makes it, yeah, a powerful guy can be blocked by a sidekick. That is true. Now, that can be seen as a flaw. However, to me, it's actually more of a strategy. It makes you want to roll sidekicks as their attack version or their quote-unquote character version because they are a great defensive strategy. You miss out on some energy that you could be getting to buy something or field someone, but they could be that good, important blocking thing. However, there are character dice. Two things. There's Overcrush. It's an ability. There's even an action card in the, I think it's the Age of Ultron set called Hulk Out that lets you give someone Overcrush. That will go right through that sidekick's defenses. It'll knock them out, and you'll still do damage to your opponent. And there are characters with Overcrush. Carnage is an example. Hulk has Overcrush. There's a lot of other ones. There's a version of Thanos that has Overcrush. So if you're worried about that, get characters with Overcrush. That will solve that problem for you. But not only that, but sidekicks, there's other people who actually can knock out sidekicks immediately. I want to say there's a version of Ultron that can. I know there's a version of Coulson, Phil Coulson that can, and some other ones. So there are some characters that knock out sidekicks. There's certain other abilities where you can just do direct damage. There's a Batman, a DC action card that lets you just do one damage. We'll just knock out a sidekick. So there's a lot of ways to minimize how defensive those sidekicks can be. It's not like they're just going to shut you down and Odin will never do any damage. There are ways around it. That's part of the team building and setup that matters so much. And he says the balance is trashed by the collectible aspect. I don't see that being the case either because really it seems like it's pretty easy to get good cards. Even the starter set, there are some really good cards. I mean, my Spider-Man starter set had a Carnage that had Overcrush that was really, really awesome. I mean, there's a lot of really good cards all over the place. So now, don't get me wrong, if you get a lot of good cards, you can have some extra synergy and they can work really well together, but it doesn't just shut you out. There is a Jocasta card that's super rare that is particularly devastatingly powerful if you don't have the right thing to go against it, but it's a super rare, so it should be pretty awesome, I would think. So I disagree with him there overall, other than the fact that if someone just has all the best stuff, yes, it would be hard to beat them. I will give you that. But again, that's kind of the way it is in most games that I've played where you buy and collect cards. There are some cards that are just really good. That's just the way it is. So you either ban them and say, hey, these certain really good ones you can't use, or you say, hey, it's fair goose. What's fair for the goose is fair for the gander, and everyone have a good time. I've only seen one card really that I feel is a little overpowered. Only one, and I've beaten it before without having it, so apparently it's not that unfair. Then, last thing he said, a good thing is that you only need one card. Yeah, that's one of the cool things about it. I've actually got two different versions of Spider-Woman that actually allow you have the same dice, no matter which character, which one of the cards you choose, totally different artwork. Like there's 3 sets of this Spider-Woman, 3 sets of this Spider-Woman, same dice for each. That's a cool feature to me, and I agree with them on that. So that's that. In my opinion, still, these people haven't changed my mind at all. This game is amazing. Having all these cool characters and rolling the dice building, bag building, and seeing what you pull out and seeing the combinations and the team building is awesome to me. I know it can cost a lot of money, and there is a lot of luck involved because you're rolling dice, but there's a lot of control at the same time. So that's my opinion. What do you think? Do you agree with these people? Do you think I'm crazy? Or do you agree with me and think that these people maybe didn't give it enough of a chance? I'd like to hear from you. Put it down in the comments what you think, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you want to see more. Until the next one, take care. Bye.